When reality starts to blur, some people panic. But what if disorientation is the doorway? This chapter introduces reality pivots and shows how moments of confusion, pause, and recalibration can become tools for shifting how you experience and react to reality. Chapter 6. Reality Pivots. I have a theory. I believe we are concentrating more deeply than ever before, diving beneath the surface, channeling from new levels of consciousness, and shifting how we process reality itself. What we're experiencing isn't just personal growth, it's a series of reality pivots. These are moments where everything you've known begins to tilt, dissolve, or reorder, and suddenly you're standing in a different dimension of awareness. The switch from one energetic terrain to another isn't always smooth. Sometimes it happens in the blink of an eye. Other times it's like molasses, slow and sticky, dragging up your deepest programming along the way. Either way, when a reality pivot hits, you may find yourself disconnected from linear function. Suddenly, you can't do simple math, recall names, or finish a mundane task. That's not a glitch, it's a sign. Your consciousness is operating in a different bandwidth, one less tethered to left brain logic and more attuned to symbolic, intuitive, right brain knowing. We're traveling in new energetic ecosystems and our minds are recalibrating how to process it. Instead of being hard on yourself for feeling disoriented or offline, remember, you are accessing deeper truths, subtler frequencies, and multidimensional information flows. This is not just a mental upgrade, it's a metaphysical one. You are shifting from the laws of the material world to the laws of the universe. These include the law of vibration, everything is energy, the law of correspondence, as within, so without, the law of cause and effect, the law of polarity, and of course, the law of attraction. These aren't just esoteric teachings, they're the scaffolding of reality. Personally, I'm allowing things to stay fluid right now, trusting that what needs to land will land in its own time and in the exact right form. This book, like the energies moving through your life, is not organized by the old constructs of logic and control. It's a living, breathing map for the path you're actually walking. It's not a curriculum, but a compass. We're not following an outline, we're following the flow. That's why this chapter comes now, not at the beginning and not in a checklist form. Because you're no longer here to learn the laws of the old way, you're here to embody the real ones, to feel them in your cells, to recognize them in the way life moves through you. This book is a field, a resonant zone. It's not here to lecture, but to mirror what you already know. Sometimes that knowledge is hidden beneath layers. Sometimes it arrives as déjà vu. Yet it's always there. If you find yourself moving in and out of clarity, don't panic. This is what integration looks like. It doesn't always arrive in linear lines. It arrives in pulses, fragments, sensations, and sudden awakenings. You're not scatterbrained, you're multidimensional. Let it all land where it lands. Let the ship be magical because it is. Remember, you're not here to control the laws, you're here to dance with them. Jane says, another reason that you didn't want to go over the laws of the universe or anything like that is you didn't want to be influenced by outside thought. I say, a lot of what's out there is discordant with me. I want to keep this book strictly between me and source, if that can be done. When I read other contemporary material, it's not so much to derive information as it is to feel into the field, just to see if a certain phrase unlocks something, triggers a download, or reveals a more resonant angle. One word, one strange metaphor, sometimes that's enough to crack open an entire transmission. These days I'm not looking for teachers, I'm looking for echoes of truth. When I read someone from another time, like the ancients, I have to jump into an interpretive chasm. Their frequency was encoded for a different moment in history. Their words are veiled in an older energy that I have to interpret. When I get to the heart of what they're saying, the gold is there. The structure might not hold anymore, but the essence often does. Let me be clear. I never take anyone's transmission as gospel, not even the so-called masters, because this timeline, this chaotic collapsing and recalibrating world we're standing in, demands new forms. Even the most revered channel wisdom has an expiration date when it comes to application. Casey and Yogananda were lightning rods for the eons. But even they spoke through the filter of their era. Now the signal has changed. The grid has shifted. The codes we need have to be reinterpreted, rewired for today's level of awakening. Reality Pivot 1. Your Inner Barometer. Take Casey's comment on ego. Ego is not the enemy of self-knowledge. It is the path to it, he said. That flips the entire New Age narrative on its head. We've been told to kill the ego, silence the ego, transcend the ego. But Casey said no. Walk through it, integrate it, and let it point you inward. Then he drops this gem. It is in the application, not the knowledge, that the truth becomes part of thee. There it is. That one sentence is a secret wrecking ball to every book that tries to give you a checklist to God. Truth isn't a concept. It is embodied, or it's dead. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't generally resonate with step-by-step plans. I don't respond to fill-in-the-blank workbooks. I want the essence to permeate my system, change my frequency, and become action. The way I navigate this life is through my inner barometer. It's not a trendy tool. It's ancient technology built into our DNA. Jane says, would I be right in saying that when you're reading books by other authors, you're using them as scanning mechanism to determine what is in alignment? I say yes, and it's actually a validation either way. The resonance either rings like a tuning fork in my chest or it drops like a dead weight. Either way, it tells me something. Jane asks, how can people learn to connect to their emotions and use this barometer, this scanning? I say, to know what is truth for them versus what is a trigger for them versus what is relevant for them. That's the work. That's discernment. It's a muscle most people have never trained. The system we were raised in never wanted us to think that way. It wanted obedient consumers, not spiritually connected scanners. When you start tuning your instrument, you realize that not everything that feels bad is false, and not everything that feels good is true. You have to dissect the emotional signature. Is this resistance because the truth is uncomfortable? Or is it a signal that something's off, manipulative, or out of sync with God connection? That's where you develop what I call empirical truth. Not factual truth, because facts can be manipulated, but truth that cannot be stolen or reframed by propaganda. You strip it down, and what's left is what's real. Jane says, some will say that includes fear. I say, fear is imposed. It's injected, programmed, sold. It's not foundational. It's not a truth. It's an alarm bell. And when you hear it, the only real question is, what's beneath it? What's the wound it's covering? What's the lie it's protecting? It's just like ego. You follow it inward, and you find the broken circuitry, and then you can rewire it. When you finally strip it all away, the false histories, the fake science, the religions built on control, the government lies, the man-made diseases, the engineered division, the entire crumbling edifice of Western mind control, you're left with just a few unbreakable truths. They don't require belief. They are self-evident. For me, those truths are the Creator, personal integrity, unconditional love. You can't kill those, not with fire, not with censorship, not even with mass psychosis. The mother whose child was murdered and still finds love, that's the God code. That's what survives the death of illusion. Jane says, I think this is a very important technique to talk about. If there is a potential grain of truth in it, if you get a bit of a nod of, that's a possibility, you hold it for further examination. I think that's a wonderful gift which we might highlight. If people were to add that one tool, their world would change immediately. I say, exactly. That's the power of discernment, and it's a practice. Those of us who've been neck deep in the awakening path, the truth movement, and the disclosure timeline, we've had to get really damn good at it. We've had to scan whistleblowers and channelers and talking heads, truthers, spiritual influencers, until our inner radar could ping a paid puppet from 10 seconds of speech. For the ones waking up now, the curve is faster. The tools are accessible. The grid is humming. What took me 10 years might take a newcomer 10 weeks. That's the acceleration we're in. That is, only if they practice, only if they train their inner tech. The first piece of that: stop giving your power to someone else's truth. Take it all in, run it through your system, and if it doesn't resonate, pause it. Don't reject it, don't adopt it. Just hold it in abeyance until truth confirms itself, because it always does. Reality Pivot 2. Conscious Abeyance. I continue to Jane. Holding a possibility in abeyance is not the same as indecision. It's spiritual maturity. It's energetic discernment. It means you have a calibrated internal system, your soul barometer, and when something enters your field that doesn't fully resonate but might, you don't reject it and you don't surrender to it either. You pause. You give it space. You say, you may have truth in you, but I'm not giving you authority until it's earned. That is the exact opposite of what we've been trained to do. We're conditioned to demand instant conclusions. Red pill or blue pill. Believe or reject. Friend or enemy. The thing is, life and truth doesn't work that way. A soul in evolution must sometimes sit with the unresolved, the incomplete, and the not yet known. That's where the real upgrades happen. I call this the practice of conscious abeyance. It's when you recognize that something may be partially true, or true at another dimensional level, or maybe just mistimed. You don't shut it out, but you don't let it run your programming. You let it orbit until it settles into clarity. It's not passivity, but precision. Jane says, that sounds incredibly freeing, incredibly difficult for those who are used to black and white thinking. I say, that's why it's a reality pivot. Most people are so scared of being wrong that they'd rather pick a side than stay centered. It's important to understand that neutrality isn't weakness. When it's conscious, it's power. Think of a high-frequency tuning fork. It doesn't chase other notes, it just vibrates at its frequency, and anything out of harmony either rises to meet it or falls away. We hold in abeyance what we don't yet understand. We don't need to shame it, and we definitely don't need to swallow it whole. We just say, not yet, I'm listening. And in that act, we reclaim our divine authority. We step outside the machine that demands instant allegiance and say, I choose to pause. I choose to feel. I choose to wait for truth to reveal itself on my timeline, not yours. That's another reality pivot. Jane says, it leads to the first, doesn't it? Back to inner, or as I like to say, emotional barometer. I say, yes, exactly. You can't hold something consciously if you haven't trained your internal compass. If you're reactive or addicted to external validation, you'll collapse the moment a flashy teacher, partner, or politician demands your allegiance. On the other hand, if you've done the work, if you know what truth feels like in your body, you can hold anything. You can sit in the unknown without needing to solve it. That's spiritual power. Reality Pivot 3, the love principle. There's not always a clean right or wrong. Just because someone is speaking a mistruth doesn't mean their heart is misaligned. This is where energy reading comes in. Not the New Age fantasy version, but the raw, grounded, everyday human skill most people don't even realize they have. We're wired to feel the vibe of a room. We can tell when someone's radiating anxiety, joy, resentment. That's energy literacy. The next layer of that, where it gets alchemical, is when you ask, where is this energy coming from? Not just what they're saying, but why they're saying it. What wound is speaking? What trauma is being projected? When you get curious instead of reactive, something inside you shifts. You unlock what I call the love principle. Now let me be clear. This isn't virtue signaling love. It's not handing out socks at Christmas or spooning out soup for a photo op, although kindness matters. This is soul-level love, fierce love. Love that doesn't need to approve of someone's behavior to recognize their essence. You don't excuse harm, but you understand the human behind the mask. Jane asks, what about those who harm others deliberately, who weaponize their pain? I say, that's where the discernment piece comes in again. Here's the rebel line no one wants to say. Not everyone on this planet is operating from a human template. I'm not here to coddle evil. There are entities, yes, entities, whose actions are so dark, so devoid of conscience, that they do not belong here. Not everything masquerading in a human skin is operating with a human soul. Some are deeply infiltrated. Some are synthetic. Some are here with a very different agenda. I say without apology, send them back. However, for those who are human, no matter how lost or damaged, there is always a story, always a why. Thank you for listening to this excerpt. Now, the next chapter describes states of consciousness and eliminates confusion when it comes to overused spiritual shorthand.